The Philadelphia Phillies have been playing much better baseball lately, but are still fiddling with the roster for the final playoff push. While this team is built on the foundation of the hitters that can mash home runs, they really rely on their pitchers for such a strong part of this team as well, and made that clear by sending down Tyler Phillips as the feel-good story that once was. Now I'm going to dive into what this means for this Phillies team, the factors that went into it, what Rob Thomson had to say, and plenty more. But before I dive fully into it, I do want to remind you guys to make sure you're smashing that subscribe button. At this point in time, 92.2% of you guys tuning into the channel have not subscribed just yet. We got to get this Phillies Digest family growing as the season feels back on track, and there's plenty of great Phillies baseball to get into. I want to dive into the story of today, which is the Phillies selecting the contract of left-handed pitcher Tyler Gilbert from AAA from Lehigh Valley. Right-handed pitcher Tyler Phillips has been optioned to AAA Lehigh Valley to make room on the 40-man roster. Right-hander Spencer Turnbull was transferred to the 60-day IL. So a couple things I do want to break down here. For starters, that the Tyler Phillips story was a great one while it lasted. Obviously a Marlton kid, a Bishop Eustace kid, a local product, and a guy who still played very well in his opportunity. That he had that complete game shutout. He had a couple, he went pretty well in his opportunity, but ultimately there was kind of an expiration date on it, and he started getting smacked around. And that was the biggest thing that stood out to me in him, is when things were going bad for Tyler Phillips, he was getting whacked. Like, they were hard hits. Even on his good outings in the final stretch of his major league career to this point, it was long flyouts. It was got ripped liners at guys that ended up going in the right spot there. Now, Rob Thomson, in defense of Tyler Phillips, spoke about how he really thinks this is due to fatigue. This is something that he's pitching more innings than he's used to. I think the complete game wore on him, and kind of gave him a benefit of the doubt there. But the reality is, in my eyes, he did not look quite like a major league pitcher at this point, and I think it is the right call to send him back down. Now, as far as who the team brought up, once again, his name also Tyler Gilbert from AAA here. And this guy with a little bit more pedigree than your typical AAA prospect. He is 30 years old. He's pitched at a variety of levels and a variety of roles. He has a no-hitter under his belt at the major league level, I believe with the Arizona Diamondbacks. Also has 7 saves down in AAA this season. 48 strikeouts to just 6 walks down in AAA, which is really impressive stuff there. He's pitched in a variety of roles. To pull up his full stats from the season down in AAA, I will pull up here. And we're talking about 27 games pitched, 35 innings, so a couple multi-inning outings there. Just 30 hits allowed, 8 earned runs, 6 walks in the 48 strikeouts, a 2.06 ERA, and a 1.02 whip there. This is a guy that I think is another quality arm that they're adding. I expect this to be much more of a bullpen role, especially factoring the full context of this Phillies team kind of coming together. We got Ranger Suarez pitching a simulated game this past weekend, which is great news. Sounds like he's trending towards returning to the rotation of pitchers there. We obviously have Zack Wheeler and Aaron Nola still doing their thing. We got a dime of a game from Christopher Sánchez, who pitched a complete game in just 99 pitches the other night. Really impressive stuff. And to kind of talk about what Rob Thomson said about that specific outing, did want to pull up this quote, which he said, quote, "Sánchez was fantastic. He really was. Everything about his night. His command, his changeup, the sink on his fastball was unbelievable. Of the 27 outs, 19 were either on the ground or strikeouts. It was dominant." And I totally agree with Topper's assessment here. And I need to see that from Christopher Sánchez. This was a guy who was off to an unbelievable start to the season through the first half of the year and kind of hit a little bit of a plateau. Felt like hitters were on to him a little more, and that was not the case in the past night. He did allow a one-run home run, a solo shot that was really the only damage done throughout the whole night. Really impressive performance overall from Sánchez. And really, that was the biggest thing that jumped out to me. Topper hit the nail on the head, that it's his sinker and his changeup that are kind of his calling cards as pitcher, that when things are going well, he's having guys ground out constantly. That it looks a little different than what I think a lot of us perceive as a dominant pitching outing, where there are a ton of strikeouts. We see that from both Wheeler and Nola. But with Sánchez, it's just he has the hitters all out of whack. That they're out in front of things, that they're kind of barely tipping it off the edge of the bag, soft grounders, little bloop pop-ups. He kind of has them looking silly up there at the plate, and we saw a ton of that. So I love that he looks like he's back to himself, or the version of Christopher Sánchez that this Phillies team needs. And then to pull in the full context of things, of course, that there is Zack Wheeler and Aaron Nola, Christopher Sánchez, who I just mentioned, Ranger Suarez, who seems dead set to return from injury in the very near future, is going to be very clearly your top 4 from the pitching staff. And then Taijuan Walker is still going to be number 5. Now, I'm not overly optimistic that there is this massive turnaround coming from Taijuan Walker. And to dive into specifically what he is producing on the season, he's pitched in 11 games. He's got just 57 innings pitched, 13 home runs allowed, which is a lot there. He does have 48 strikeouts, 62 hits allowed. Would much prefer that to be down a little bit. 9.8 hits per 9 innings. His ERA still sitting at 5.68 and WHIP at 1.5. Not great stuff from Taijuan, but the bottom line is this is kind of one of those situations where sometimes the contract dictates the opportunity. I don't expect them to eat into Taijuan Walker's, opportunity at this point because the man has been paid. And the other options here, I did not want to brush over this in the initial announcement that it talked about shifting Spencer Turnbull to the 60-day IL. I hate the vibes that are coming out of the Spencer Turnbull situation. That I did really think this could have been a guy that was a key player in this Phillies season, whether it was as a starting option, maybe potentially extending the starting rotation to 6 arms to give a little bit of a break in this tail end of the season before the playoff push, or maybe just a deep reliever, a guy that come out of the bullpen, pitch multiple innings. That's kind of the role that I could see for Turnbull. Frankly, I did think it was more likely that it shifted towards that second half of things, of him more of a long reliever, a guy that could eat up some innings in the games that dictated it. But I'm getting more and more concerned that we may not see him for the entirety of the season. It just feels like there's continued setbacks with his issue. I know there's a lat muscle thing that was the latest, him getting shifted to the 60-day injured list there. And even if them kind of making the case and showing that this is basically to create a roster spot, I just don't love all the responses I'm hearing from Rob Thomson. And I'm increasingly concerned that we may not see Turnbull for the entirety of the season now. But that only cements even further that we're going to see the 5-man rotation that we kind of knew was going to be the case coming into the year. And that's once again with Zack Wheeler, with Aaron Nola, with Christopher Sánchez, Ranger Suarez, and Taijuan Walker. Now, let's not sell short how good some of the other guys have been. That yes, I kind of hyped on Taijuan Walker here, but Zack Wheeler has been the ace that we know him to be. A 2.72 ERA on the season, 162 strikeouts to the 103 hits. Aaron Nola also quietly having a very good season, a 3.45 ERA, 142 strikeouts to his 139 hits allowed, just 22 home runs there. And as I acknowledged with Spencer Turnbull, 17 games on the season. This is a guy that I think would be very useful if he was capable of pitching, but I'm just getting less and less optimistic of that being the case. And I do think we need to begin to accept that reality for this Phillies team here. But ultimately, when looking ahead, it's not the greatest concern of the world, as we know when we get to the playoffs that this rotation is going to get narrowed down even further. And I think Christopher Sánchez is really the storyline here, that he's kind of established himself as that third arm. And what that opens up to this Phillies team is he can use Ranger Suarez however you see best fit. That we've seen opportunities where Suarez has been a guy pitching in the bullpen. We've seen him come in for high leverage innings. We've seen him close out final outs in the playoffs before. The dude is cool as a cucumber and cannot get his heartbeat accelerated for nothing. So while I think from a stuff perspective, from a trust perspective, and you believe him, I could see this Phillies team using him as that third starter and it being Nola, Wheeler, and Ranger. But it also would not shock me if Sánchez is proving himself enough to be that third guy come playoff time and allow you to use Ranger wherever you see fit. A bit more plug and play and get him in, use him a little more often in more games or stuff like that. Will be interesting to see how things play out from there. But ultimately, I guess today we will bid farewell to the Tyler Phillips era here in Philadelphia. Do hope he gets another opportunity at the MLB level. Again, an awesome story and a guy that did give this Phillies team some decent innings during the first part of his tenure in the majors. So wishing him the best moving forward and hope to see him back in a Phillies uniform at some point. But for the time being, this team has to be zeroed in on doing the right things and improving this team ahead of the playoff push. And I want each and every one of you guys along with me for that playoff push as well. So once again, make sure you're smashing that subscribe button if you have not already. It's just 7.8% of you guys tuning into the videos have subscribed just yet. So make sure you're smashing that button, dropping a like on this video, any comments you have below, and I'll be talking with you next time right here on Phillies Digest. Peace.